Hello, welcome to Sports World Have Your Say with me, Amanda Davis. It's been a great week for the romantics amongst us. Coming up, the age of the golden oldies, the English Premier League goes back to the future.
Well, he's a great player, and some of the press have been very negative. I can understand it, but that's probably because it's United.
We're talking red cards, not exactly black and white. This is your chance to tackle the referee. Time for fans to forgive. Blackburn are out of the bottom three, but is Steve Keane out of the doghouse?
Any victory is a nice feeling, and I'm delighted for the players and the staff and the supporters and the owners.
We're having a look at life after football and dealing with depression. And the Africa Cup of different nations with so many big teams missing. What are you expecting from the next few weeks? Well, it's a tournament that's certainly got you going on Facebook and Twitter. We'll try and get through as many of your comments as possible in the next hour or so. So please do keep them coming into all the usual places. Former QPR, Fulham and West Ham player and former manager of Sierra Leone, Leroy Rossignol, is back with me in the studio this week. If our conversation in the office is anything to go by, he's certainly not going to be backwards in coming forwards. But before we go any further, let's just get a summary of the latest news. You're watching Sports World Have Your Say. It was a fairy tale comeback for Thierry Henry this week, but he couldn't write the script on Sunday. Arsenal have been beaten by a flying Swansea side. 3-2 it finished. QPR were beaten 1-0 by Newcastle in the other game. That, of course, Mark Hughes' first match in charge this week. I've got Leroy Rossignol with me in the studio. We've got Nick, a Swansea fan who joins us on Skype from Wales, and Kyle is an Arsenal fan in Indianapolis. Leroy, I suppose it shows that Thierry Henry isn't the answer to all of Arsenal's problems today.
No, I thought it was a signing that was just papering over the cracks, and I know it's so romantic and it seems like a fairy tale. And I had goosebumps when I saw him score against Leeds, but it was against Leeds in the FA Cup. And when the Premier League is a different kettle of fish, and he's not fit yet, he's got a couple of weeks to get fit and 4 weeks or 5 weeks to make an impression. And for me, it was almost a backward step.
Kyle, what did you make of that today?
I think everyone's right in saying it was a fairy tale re-emergence of Thierry Henry in the FA Cup, as it were, and a typical Henry finish, I think, in that game, and it puts us through to the next round for sure. But I don't know that he's the answer if Arsenal want to climb back into the top four in the Premier League. I mean, you have to hand it to Swansea today. They were brilliant. They really took their chances. They were able to make the most of what Arsenal gave them defensively, and I think it points out a couple of things, the Arsenal glaring, problems with Arsenal, that we really rely on Mikel Arteta in the midfield to keep possession and be creative in more ways than perhaps what we get out of Ramsey and even Song coming out of the back. And that Andre Arshavin is perhaps not the player that he once was, and he, short of a few assists here and there, he doesn't provide much other than, a few field goal type kicks over the net. So.
Yeah, Max Shadow 1982 has tweeted using the hashtag SWHYS saying, "Useless Arsenal, let's have a bonfire, burn all the deadwood at the club, starting with Arshavin." But Ernest Hemming-May has tweeted saying, "Swansea are the most entertaining promoted team in years, infinitely more so than Blackpool." And Nick, I suppose, could you have expected it to go as well as it has?
No, to be honest, the first season, I think if you asked any Swansea fan, I think they'd be expected just to stay up, regardless of how they played. But seeing as it's the first halfway through the season now, they said top half of the table, can't really complain.
Yeah, Leroy, more than just a flash in the pan, it seems, for Swansea.
They always were going to be. I saw them in the Championship, and they're always solid. The problem was, will they score goals? And Danny Graham started slow this season, but he's come to the fore. And I was surprised that people were surprised that Swansea went out and played that way, because they're full of confidence. Brendan Rodgers has got them believing in what they do. And they've only lost one game at home. That was to Man United, where they made an error. I think Angel Rangel gave the ball away, and Man United to score the goal. And won 1-0. That's the only game they've lost at home. So I was surprised that people were a little bit shocked that Swansea could perform that way, because they're a very, very good side.
But Nick, as a Swansea fan, you've got to be worried about Brendan Rodgers, haven't you? And surely he's making waves. Somebody else might come in for him.
Yeah, I think he just turned down the Northern Ireland international job. But I think Swansea, to be honest, give him a chance when he got chucked out of Reading. And I think he's kind of sticking with him now as he's brought up the team, got him promoted last season, and as you said, playing well this season.
Well, Matt Akal and Matt Mushimbi has posted a message on Facebook saying a disappointing game. Wenger should buy quality defenders, not only depending to a few individuals. Kyle, who would you like to see come in, maybe?
Well, I don't know that it's a matter of bringing someone in defensively. I think we've had terrible luck with 4 fullbacks out at the same time. Not to mention Thomas Vermaelen out, arguably our best center half. Frankly, I don't know who is available who that might be better quality than Bakary Sagna or Kieran Gibbs when he's healthy. I think both of those guys are fantastic fullbacks when they're healthy. I think it's a string of terrible luck injury-wise. And it's hard to cope when you're throwing reserve players with numbers you normally don't see on the field, 49 and whatever else shirts they might give those guys when they have to play in the first team. We're really making do defensively, and there's been talk about Wayne Bridge coming into the side on loan. Just the fact that he has some EPL experience. I don't know that he's played in about 6 months. It seems as he's quite out of favor there at Man City. But, that's a tough call. I think we just really need to get our fullbacks healthy and see what they can't do to help us get back into the top 4.
OK, Carl, thanks for now. Let's welcome Jawad to the conversation, a QPR fan who joins us from London. Mark Hughes' first game in charge, a defeat to Newcastle. How positive are you about the future?
In our league position, in our current form, it's quite hard to be that positive, really. I think January is going to be a big month because obviously he can bring in his own players, but I think they're going to struggle to bring in the quality that we've been linked with so far. Our season starts next Saturday, really, with Wigan at home, and then we've got, I think, Blackburn, Wolves, Fulham, Aston Villa in the next six or 7 games. So I think we'll know a lot more at the end of February, I think.
Joe, and aren't you disappointed with the players that Neil Warnock brought in? I mean, we're talking about QPR needed another batch of players now, but, the Bartons, the Luke Youngs and the Sean Wright-Phillips were the ones who are supposed to come in and do the business, and they just haven't done it, have they?
I think that's a really, really fair point, because if you look at the signings we made compared to Norwich and Swansea, you would have taken our signings, I would have thought, Anton Ferdinand, Barton, Sean Wright-Phillips, and I actually don't think that many of them have performed as well as we would have expected, really. Sean Wright-Phillips being played a little bit out of position, but not really contributed much in terms of goals or assists. Barton's flitted in and out of games. Luke Young's been okay. Traore from Arsenal has done okay, but you would have thought with the players that we had, we wouldn't be 18th in the league at the moment.
What do you think how Neil Warnock's been treated? I wasn't surprised that he went. I know Neil, he's a nice lad. I know Keith Curl as well, but a lot of people were shocked by the way he was treated. Were you one of those people?
Well, I've been to most games this season, and the form has got worse as the season's gone on, really. And I think it was clear the last few games certain players really weren't pulling their weight. I was a tiny bit surprised, but if it was going to happen, it had to happen to give the new manager 3 weeks to bring in his own players. So I think it was a tiny surprise, but not huge.
So those comments that Neil Warnock made about, he's made the cake and Mark Hughes now just needs to put the icing on, you think it's more than that?
I do think it's more than that, because I think, as Leroy said, the players that were brought in August haven't performed. So there's quite a lot of work needing doing. I would say we need 5 or 6 players just to keep us up this season, and whether or not we can bring in the quality players that we need to, I think we might struggle to bring in Alex, Samba, players like that. I'm not sure. OK, well, apparently QPR need a few more players if they have any chance of staying up this season. What do you think? Please do get in touch with us. The Facebook site on the bottom of the screen there, or all the usual ways
down the side there. But we've talked about Thierry Henry making a fairy tale comeback this week. But another golden oldie, of course, was Paul Scholes. Apparently he scores goals, you know, or he did score one, at least his first goal for Manchester United for nearly 2 years on Saturday, aged 37 years and 59 days. Mixed reaction to these comebacks in the press, Leroy. Good thing or bad thing in your view?
Well, he's the same age as me, Amanda, and I couldn't come back. It's 10 years in it, actually. But I think it was a good thing. And I'll tell you why it was a good thing, because although he's been retired, he's been training with Man United. And for games like that, against Bolton, where Man United are going to have a lot of possession, we won't see the likes of Wayne Rooney having to drop in midfield and show some creative flair. And that's what Man United have been missing in those games against the teams that just sit back and just defend on the edge of their box. And he came in yesterday and he did it perfectly. And I didn't think he could, in all honesty, but it was an outstanding performance. And just to drift into the box and get his goal was absolutely perfection.
Well, let's welcome Taya, a Manchester United fan, to the conversation. Joins us from Nairobi. Do you agree with the decision to bring Paul Scholes back, Taya?
Yes. Right now we're having players injured. We're having Cleverly. We have Anderson, who is not performing at par. We also have Carrick has been a revelation, but again we've been short in midfield, and Scholes is a good addition to the team. And again, I also feel like we need to buy. That's a stopgap measure. It can fill in the space left by the injuries, and also the quality. We need better quality in the middle, and we can't be relying on old players. But it's a good move. Scholes is a very good addition to the team. It's like a new signing again.
Yeah, well, Sylvester Makudza's got in touch on Facebook and says it won't be a shock to have Scholes as a player of the season. I think he has got a little way to go before that, but he's certainly had the backing of his manager, Sir Alex Ferguson. This is what he had to say.
Well, he's a great player, you know, and some of the press have been very negative. I can understand it, but that's probably because it's United. But he's still a fantastic player. Over the last few months, he's been training with the reserves, and the young players have been absolutely in awe of him. The last few weeks, he's been training intensive work to get back to where he is today.
Sir Alex saying that about the impact there that Paul Scholes has had on the young players, Leroy, but there's been lots of reports that actually players like Ravel Morrison and Darren Gibson, that's kind of why they've wanted to leave. They've been had their noses put out of joint. Well,
I thought they had their noses put out of joint before Paul Scholes played, because they weren't playing. They weren't getting in the side. Darren Gibson just wasn't getting in the side. He was bringing, Fabio into the midfield, and Ji-Sung Park was playing in midfield, and Darren Gibson wasn't getting the look in. And that says to me that Alex Ferguson just thought that he wasn't good enough. Paul Scholes is a different kettle of fish. He's been a world-class player, and to go in there and just sit in the team that has a lot of possession just shows that what Alex thinks of him. And Alex tried to persuade him to stay that extra year last year, and he said no. It just proves Alex was right again.
And Kyle, actually, the return of Thierry Henry and Paul Scholes, it might actually give some of these young players a kick up the backside and say, hey, it's not just about raking in the money. If you put in the hard work and the dedication, this is the kind of player you could be. Yeah,
I think so. I think, it's been mentioned in the locker room, Paul Scholes and Thierry Henry. It's really that priceless aspect of having them back. They've been through a lot. They've each won trophies. They've each scored plenty of goals and been in a number of huge matches throughout their career. And I think that that extra dimension, not only on the field that they bring back to the squad to really, push these young players into action and into a performance, that locker room aspect that they bring back to the team, I think is really something that you really can't put a price tag on, regardless of how much you might be paying some of those young players.
We've been asking on Facebook who you'd like to see make a comeback. Moses says, I miss Zidane and Ronaldo. Rob R. Mann says Edwin van der Sar. Paul Callow says Dennis Law and Jimmy Greaves. And Firoz says Kenny Dalglish for Liverpool. He'll show the goal-shy strikers how it's done on the pitch. Who would you like to see make a comeback? Please do get in touch with us. All the usual ways available. But we'll be back in just a couple of minutes. Don't go anywhere. OK, well, Paul Scholes scored Manchester United's opening goal on Saturday, a victory that saw them move level on points at the top of the table with Manchester City, but Spurs missed the chance to go up there and join the top two. They were held to a 1-1 draw by Wolves. This is how the English Premier League table stands this evening, Sunday evening. City and United level on 48 points. City do, though, have the chance to stretch ahead again on Monday against Wigan. Spurs now 2 points behind, then Chelsea, then Arsenal. Newcastle up to the top 6th with their win over QPR today, level on points with Arsenal. Leroy, is that Spurs out of it now, do you think?
No, of course not. They're still contenders. You know, I was just surprised. All of a sudden, people said because they were, you know, in touching distance of the top that they are contenders, and now they dropped a couple of points at home that they're not. Of course they are, because of the way they play. I think it was an excellent performance by Wolves. They dug in yesterday, and Spurs played well. And there's going to be a lot of twists and turns between now and the end of the season. And I think the big game is on January the 22nd when Spurs obviously play Man City. Can they beat the Manchester clubs, because they've come up against them and they've had this inferiority complex for too long, and this is the time to change it if they are to challenge.
Yeah, a lot of people picking up on that. Do you think Spurs really believe they can win the title, drawn against Swansea and now drawn against Wolves?
You know what, I do, because all of a sudden, I think maybe a few years ago, they would have sold Modric to Chelsea and said, yeah, you go ahead. But the chairman said, no, we are now a big club. And it's come from the top down. He said, no, we're going to challenge. We're going to keep our best players, you know, Bale and Lennon, and they brought in Adebayor, which has added a bit of something as well. And I just think they are ready to challenge.
OK, stay with us here on Sports World. Have your say. We're going to be talking referees next. You're watching Sports World. Have your say. Referees have been facing the wrath from all angles over the last week or so. Disputed red cards and the dispute over two-footed tackles. Vincent Kompany was shown red and suspended for 4 games for his challenge, whilst just a couple of days later, Glenn Johnson escaped scot-free for his two-footed tackle. So a lot of questions now being asked. There have been other incidents that have been under the spotlight in the last couple of days. I've got Leroy Rossignol with me, and Stuart Dougal, who is a former international referee, also joins us, and Joad, a QPR fan, joins us from London as well. I suppose the issue here, Stuart, is consistency, and there's a lot of confusion around it.
Well, you're absolutely right, Amanda. It's about consistency, but unfortunately you won't get consistency across a number of referees, because they'll see things in their own angle or from their own angle that something that looks in television like a clear-cut decision one way or t'other, whether it's yellow, red or no card at all, may seem differently to the referee during the match. And again, when you sit and analyse some of the decisions, referees can sit round in the meetings that we have, and we can discuss what should be a red, what should be a yellow. But it's very, very difficult to get that consistency across a large number of professionals.
Stuart, don't you get frustrated when you hear people saying we want referees to referee with common sense one day, then the next day they want you to referee to the letter of the law? There's inconsistent message going to referees. What would you prefer to do?
Well, you're absolutely right, Leroy. I would prefer that they allowed the referee a bit of leeway so that they can decide. Sometimes a challenge in a type of game, maybe say a very, very tough match, will clearly be a red card. But if a match has been played in a very, very good spirit, for example, and the game is near the end and somebody makes a challenge that's borderline red card, we'll allow the referee maybe to technically get it wrong, but it's the right thing for the game. So a little bit of flexibility, but that needs a greater understanding from managers, coaches and, dare I say it, the supporters.
It's funny you talk about managers, Stuart, because they wind me up. I'll tell you why, because one day, if they see a challenge and it's in their favour, oh, it's a great challenge, then the next, and it's not, they say they don't see it. And so there's a lack of consistency from managers about being honest about all the challenges, not just challenges about their side, and trying to protect their side all the time. Doesn't that frustrate you as well?
Well, again, the referees appreciate that as part of the game, that there'll be pressure put on match referees from whether it be the players or indeed a lot of the time, as you rightly said there, from the coaches at the side. Managers will see it their way, and they've admitted to me privately, now that I'm out of the game, that a lot of the time that they do that just to put pressure for the next decision, and that's what again increases the pressure in the poor Max referee.
Yeah, you've got to feel some sympathy with the referees, because we get to see all these incidents from 20 different angles and then discuss them. Alan Regan Basimba has sent us a message from Kampala on our Facebook site saying, I think referees are confused on what to do, but generally the league is going to lose what it's loved for. But Nigel Rio Coker from Bolton says it's not the referees who are confused, it's actually the players that are confused, saying even the powers that be don't really know the true rules about tackling. There aren't clear enough guidelines to know how you can tackle in the modern game. Players going down easy is not what the English game is about. Leroy, is that the danger, that the English game suddenly doesn't or moves away from what it is?
I don't think that there is a danger. I think people are getting carried away. You know, there was an incident where a referee sent off a player, and then everybody says, well, why isn't he sent off? Why isn't he sent off? And that's the problem. You know, everybody's getting carried away. The English game is all about tackling. And you know what? And this will settle down, and people will forget about this, because it's just because of the reaction of managers saying, well, last week this didn't go for me, so I want it to go my way this time. They've got to settle down and be sensible and let referees ref the game. And as Stuart said, let them referee with common sense, and it'll be fine. And just stop this. It's a load of rubbish to me from managers. They've caused their own problem, and now they're asking for the referees to sort it out.
But isn't it about players' safety, Joad? What do you think about, say, a two-footed tackle? Should it be a red card, full stop?
I don't think it should be. It just depends how much force is used and things. And going back to what Leroy said, I don't think the players actually helped the situation with their reactions on the pitch to these tackles. Wayne Rooney last week, as soon as Company makes that tackle, he's straight in the referee's face, asking for a card. Zamora yesterday with Yakubu's tackle was straight over to the referee, and the players need to take a bit of responsibility too for their reactions on the pitch, I think.
Joe, you've got a great opportunity here. What would you like to ask a referee? What has frustrated you? And you've got the chance to ask Stuart. What would you like to ask him?
I do think. This is quite a tough one to be put on the spot, actually. The consistency thing. As a fan, 1 week you'll, for example, Joey Barton, was sent off 2 weeks ago against Norwich, and surely the referees are under a lot of pressure. But if the club asks for the red card to be rescinded, like QPR did, like Man City did, should the FA stand up a bit more to that and actually accept that the referees are human and they will make errors, or do you think they need to stand by their referees?
I think certainly from the referee's point of view, we're quite happy that there is a chance to review and correct a wrong if indeed that's happened in a match situation. However, going back to an earlier point there in terms of the consistency, as I've mentioned before, it's very, very difficult to get a group of individuals, whether it be football referees, football players, to see things the same way. And unfortunately, at the speed of the game as well, a number of referees have got to be in the right place, super fit. There's a whole host of things that go into making a top referee. And unfortunately, what will suffer will be that consistency that everybody asks for, but you don't even get it in the top players. You know, we ask of a referee something that you don't get week in, week out from top players who indeed unfortunately have off days as well.
OK, so the big question is, what is the solution to this? Yazani on Facebook says the introduction of video cameras. What do you think? Please do get in touch with us. That's what we're going to be talking about, and a whole lot more in just a couple of minutes here on Sports World. Have your say. You're watching Sports World, Have Your Say. I've got Leroy Rossignol with me in the studio this week, waiting to talk to you. We've been talking about the return of golden oldies. Abio in Kano in Nigeria says, I can't understand the decision. Oh, sorry. We've been talking about golden oldies, but we've also been talking about tackles and the problems with refereeing. It says, I can't understand the decision to send off Yakubu for a one-footed challenge on Murphy and Blackburn's win over Fulham. Football's a contact sport. I can't just decipher how that was a red card. Agozi's posted on Facebook, I think the English FA should, as a matter of urgency, do something about referees' decision making. What do you think? Please do get in touch with us. I've got Stuart Dougal, a former international referee, with us. And we also have Glenn with us, a Blackburn fan who joins us from Salford. We're going to be talking about Blackburn in a moment, but we've got to talk about a football story that's been a really tough read in the Sunday papers here in England about Dean Windass, former Hull City, Middlesbrough and Sheffield United player who's admitted to struggling with his depression since finishing as a player. He's admitted that he's tried to commit suicide, saying, "I cried every day for the last 2 years since I quit. People outside football think we have it all, but I was in a hole. Just over a week ago, I decided to end it all." Leroy, what do you make of that? I suppose a worrying trend that more and more of these stories are now coming out.
Well, I was, as you said, it was a really tough week. I know Dean, and he's a really good man, and he's an absolute legend at all the clubs he's been at Bradford, at Hull. And when he retired, I thought that he'd find a position at one of these football clubs, either as an ambassador or as a coach, and then he would carry on. But as he said, there was a great big hole in his life, and he found it difficult to fill. And I find that really sad. I think a player like Dean, who's given his all to football and then he's been engrossed by the game. And then, you know, when I say engrossed, there's loads of us who are ex-players who absolutely love the game, but Dean is a special type. He's a special sort of player, and the same sort of character, I suppose, as Paul Gascoigne. And I think those sorts of players need to get back involved in the game, otherwise they find a massive void in their life. And it's culminated with Dean trying to take his life. And I just think there's a duty of care from the Professional Footballers Association, but I think there's also a duty of care from ex-football clubs to try and help ex-players when they get into difficulties, and just try and not pay them for no reason to coach, but to get them involved with the football club, because the fans want to see him at their local football clubs. The fans, Hull supporters, think he's an absolute legend. They'd love him to have him around the club. And I think if that had happened from the time that he'd retired, I hope, and I maybe think there'd be a better chance that he wouldn't have got into the situation that he's got into now, because it is really sad. And these things shouldn't be happening with footballers who've had everything, who've managed to have a fantastic career, and then as soon as that career comes to a dead halt, they don't know where to go.
Stuart, do you think footballing organisations can do more to help both former players and referees? We, of course, had the story from the Bundesliga not too long ago.
Yeah, it's going to be tough, no doubt about it, for the football clubs or the authorities to look after them. You know, you mentioned Dean Windass and Paul Gascoigne, two players who had the fortune to officiate when they were up here in Scotland. Dean was up at Aberdeen. Unfortunately, won't remember, or won't like to remember, the 3 red cards and the yellow card that I gave him in the one match. But that apart, it was great to have these guys here. And yeah, as a former football referee, I've had a massive hole in my life. In between retiring and now I'm lucky I've got a full-time job, but even that there's not enough there to replace the buzz, the adrenaline, and more importantly the camaraderie that Dean and Paul and dare I say myself and many others will have missed over the last number of years we've been out of the game.
Yeah, Stuart, you said you're lucky, and I think I'm fortunate as well. But there's certain types of character who are just so engrossed in the sport. You just do. You see them, don't you? You just wonder what they're going to do when they finish playing. I think Dean comes into that category. Don't you think that football clubs can do more, maybe to educate the players along the way as to what they're going to do when they finish, or to actually put them in a position where they can move on with their lives when they do finish?
I think it would be a big challenge for them, maybe to get the players along. How do you identify which ex-players require that void being filled, or which ones are happy to go away and either start a new career? We saw Dean pretty regularly on television, and most people would expect that that's his niche now, but that's a small part of his week. Going to be very difficult, I think, for the football clubs, but certainly some of them do bring the ex-pros, particularly the legends or the well-known ones, back of a match day, and they mix with a lot of the fans at the hospitality. And I don't think they would want to do that with referees, though. Maybe they would. Maybe that's something that we should look at. Graham Paul, I'm sure, would go down well down in England. No,
that's a bad move.
On the plus side, though, the fact that more people are talking about this issue can only be a good thing, surely.
Absolutely. Up here as well, without highlighting it too much, Neil Lennon The Celtic manager, again, another player I've been fortunate to referee in my career up here. He came out publicly about a year ago, and recently on a programme that was shown on television during last week, again, he mentioned the fact that his door's always open now for his young players in particular. And I think as more and more people, not just within football, sport wider, and even, dare I say, in business, I think will accept that the mental health issues are much greater now, and they do need to be properly looked after.
OK, well, we've been talking about the return of golden oldies on Sports World Have Your Say. Mustafa in Nigeria has tweeted the comeback of Paul Scholes is a real boost to the United midfield, which lacks creativity. So some benefits of returning to the older players. But one team who are doing the youthful way at the moment is Blackburn Rovers. And arguably might have paid off. It's been a long, hard winter at Ewood Park and for Blackburn Rovers fans, but they got victory over Fulham on Saturday and are out of the relegation zone for the first time in 4 months. Glenn's been waiting patiently to speak to us. Has Steve Keane won you over then?
Obviously, we're thrilled with the result we had yesterday. Ecstatic with the result, but also very disappointed that it's been marred by us having to protest before the game due to Venky's not engaging with the supporters, and over the last 13, 14 months they've systematically dismantled one of the best football administrations in the Premier League. We want to go on our football team at the weekend, put our shirts on, join up with our friends and get behind our players, and hopefully celebrate 3 points. But at the moment we're very worried about what's going off the pitch. So it was a great, welcome break to see the team, win yesterday. I thought Steve Keane got his tactics bob on, and we went down to 10 men. I thought it was quite unlucky to go down to 10 men. But the players, the young players, they dug in hard, and Fulham and no mugs. That was a fantastic victory yesterday.
Glenn, you talked about, how it was marred by the protests towards Venky's. What about all the vitriol and abuse that Steve Keane's been getting as well? He's a manager of your football club. The players obviously are playing for him. They're down to 10 men, lose their top goal scorer, and the fans have been having T-shirts out to get him out and abusing him. He needs a police escort when he has to go out on the street, which I think is an absolute disgrace. So why are you keeping having a go at your manager when him and the players are doing their very best to try and keep you in the league?
I do think the media reports of obviously people saying that he's got bodyguards and he's scared to go out. I think they're being blown out of proportion. I know protests have been organised, with the cooperation of the club, with the cooperation of the police. There's been no arrests, there's been no public order offences, and the club and the police have commended the supporters for the way they've actually gone by organised protests. When the organised protests were taken away over the last 7 weeks and they went to spontaneous protests or organic protests, that was when it got quite heated. And that's why organised protests have come back, because not many people want to get involved in organised protests because they don't like being told when to protest or when not to protest. They want it just to naturally happen. You look at Sunderland Football Club and QPR, their managers have been replaced this season, and their records, are a lot better than Steve Keane. Steve Keane's got the worst managerial record that Blackburn Rovers have ever had from a Premiership manager.
But he's the Venky's man, and the difference with QPR is that they had a new owner who was given a manager, and now Fernandez has wanted to put his stamp on the team, surely.
Yeah, there was an article that came out today on Sporting Intelligence done by Nick Harris, a very respected journalist, and a letter's leaked out to Blackburn Rovers from last year, sent to the owners by John Williams, Tom Finn and Martin Goodman, who was the directors of our club at the time, saying that they're basically just pen pushing, they're not allowed to make any decisions. They was very disappointed that obviously Sam Allardyce was removed without their knowledge, that Steve Keane was appointed without their input, and that the manager doesn't answer to the board of directors. And the transparency at the club, it's just not there. And this is why supporters are protesting, because we've been founder members of the Football League, we've been going for 137 years, we're founder members of the Premier League. We don't expect to be winning Champions Leagues or signing Ronaldinho's and Beckham's. And we've got to remember, they're the promises that Venky's made when they came in. Supporters just wanted a well-run football club and for the town's heritage and the legacy of Jack Walker to be protected. And it's just not happened. They've not been in the country for 4 months, Venky's. and supporters are seriously worried that our club's going to go into administration and people are standing by and letting it happen.
Yeah, Surab has actually posted on Facebook echoing your thoughts, saying Blackburn's owners, the Venky's, should be honest to Blackburn fans about their future plans for Rovers. Communication is lacking from their side. Joad is with us, a QPR fan. What have you made of Blackburn's fans this season?
I think the Blackburn fan just now has got quite a few fair points. We're quite fortunate at QPR that our owner, the vice chairman and the chief executive are all in open dialogue constantly on Twitter with the fans, and every step of the way they let us fans know why they made a decision, why they sacked Neil Warnock, why they appointed Mark Hughes, and I do think fans need that transparency with the board. I do think sometimes the protests at Blackburn maybe have been a bit too extreme against the manager, because it's clear the players are still playing for him, and you don't win a Premier League game with 10 men for 70 minutes unless you're fully behind your manager. So maybe they have gone a bit over the top against the boss, but with the owners I can completely see why they're so angry at them.
Will Steve Keane ever win you over?
Obviously, I've actually asked Steve Keane to have a meeting. He promised to have a meeting with some supporters. To date, he hasn't had this meeting. In meetings I've had with Blackburn Rovers and the board of directors that have been installed by Venky's, we've told them to take these protests away from the stands, sit around the table, let's openly discuss what the supporters' concerns are, let's be transparent about it, let's put it on the club website, you know, and let's get the supporters actually getting behind the team, getting behind the manager and trying to get out of a relegation fight. Today, the club, you know, I've said these meetings will go ahead, but they've been saying this for 4 months and we're no further down the line, and we're very disappointed. So it's quite easily, you know, for people to blame the supporters, but I think it's a two-way street here. I think we should be looking at the club as well and what the club are actually doing to actually bring protests to an end too.
OK, well, lots of you have been getting in touch with us this week about the Africa Cup of Nations, which gets underway at the weekend. Ika in Nigeria has posted on Facebook saying the Cup of Nations this year will be a tournament full of surprises in which none of the bookmakers' favourites will win the cup. What do you think? Please do get in touch with us. That's what we're going to be talking about in just a couple of minutes here on Sports World. Have your say. The Africa Cup of Nations gets underway on Saturday with just one of the last 9 winners taking part in the tournament in Gabon and Equatorial Guinea. No Cameroon, Nigeria, South Africa, or the 3-time defending champions Egypt. Taya is back with us, a Manchester United fan from Nairobi. Joada, a QPR fan who's half Moroccan, who joins us as well. Taya, how excited are you about this year's tournament?
This tournament will be full of surprises, as you said earlier. I think teams like Niger, Guinea, Sudan, and also Zambia, they can be the surprise package for the tournament, and they'll give a good account of themselves. A team like Zambia have had a coach for the same coach for the last I think 3 years, and that's a big plus for them. And also, if you look at the history of the competition, they had a very good group of players who died in a plane crash, and I think they look to emulate them, and that's what they've been talking about there, that they can emulate that very good side of that died in a plane crash. So I think it will be a very good competition and full of surprises. Although teams like the Ivory Coast, they have very good players like the Drogba, they have Tiote, they have Jevino, they have Yaya Toure, they have Kolo Toure. Those are very good players on paper, but as a team, can they tick? If they tick, then the tournament is theirs, the cup is theirs, they'll win the competition.
Yeah, Leroy, it could actually be a bit of a last chance saloon for the Ivory Coast, couldn't it? With players like Didier Drogba and the Toure brothers not getting any younger.
Absolutely, and they've consistently underperformed. Tayo's right. You know, on paper they are clearly favourites. But you know, in recent tournaments they haven't performed, and that's been like a lot of the teams that haven't qualified this year, that they haven't performed. Nigeria haven't performed. It was a surprise that Egypt didn't get there, but then looking at the background, everything had to go with the upheavals in Egypt. It wasn't a surprise, but I think that's going to make it a really exciting tournament with some new talent coming in, some fresh faces, and that means we don't know what to expect. But Ivory Coast are the favourites, but you know, watch out, anybody could come to the fore and win this tournament. Stephen
Bonaventure Matthias says Nigeria and Egypt have not qualified. This competition won't be interesting and entertaining. Jawad, is that your view?
I think it's going to be more entertaining than previous years, purely because you've got the unknown teams really in this country anyway, and then you've got a lot more Premier League players going over there. So there should be a lot of interest in England. I think it could be a great tournament.
Okay, well, let's welcome Amari to the conversation. Joins us on the phone from Ghana. What are you most looking forward to in the next couple of weeks? Is that Amari? Oh, I think we might have a few problems with that phone line there from Amari. That doesn't sound too good. Can you hear me? No, I think we haven't got him. Oh, no, I think we're struggling with Amari there, sadly. Pedpax on Twitter says, I see Demba Ba scoring lots of goals at the Cup of Nations with the Black Stars of Ghana picking up the trophy. I'm sure Amari might have had the same view there. Jean-Didier Arsenal Nati on Facebook says, watch out for Andre Dede AU and Ghana winning. Lena Sabina says the Ivory Coast are going to win. Milo Mwami says, watch out for Kalaba. Go Zambia, go. So support for Taya Zambia there. What are you most interested in seeing, Leroy?
I'm interested in seeing entertaining football, a great atmosphere from Equatorial Guinea and Gabon. They want to put on a really good show. And you know, it's interesting, people saying Demba Ba. I think his strike partner, Musa Sal, could have a very good tournament as well. And I was interested in what Jaywad had to say, because their manager, Eric Gerets, has come out and said that, you know, Morocco are going to go for the win. And it's always, North African teams have always done well. Obviously, Egypt aren't there. Are Morocco good enough to have a go at this tournament?
They're in the best place they've been for years, really. Usually in the squad there's quite a split between the African-based players and the European-based players, but I think I'm right in saying I think 18 of the squad this year are based in Europe, and you've obviously got QPR player Turat playing, and on his day he genuinely is a top class player, and if he plays well, they really do stand a good chance of getting to at least the semi-final, I'd say.
Well, let's try and hit the phone lines again. Buka, a Liverpool fan from Lagos in Nigeria, is with us. Nigeria not there, but are you still excited about watching the competition?
Well, I must confess, not so much follow-up on the Nations Cup, but definitely because it's football, I'm a football fan. I mean, I'm an African football fan, so definitely I'll be following up with the tournament.
The bouquet, I mean, a lot of people saying it's not going to be entertaining, but when Nigeria have got there in recent years, they've been the least entertaining of all the sides. Who do you think will come to the fore and win the title this year?
I think I'll be rooting for Cote d'Ivoire, but Cote d'Ivoire has been rooted for in the last couple of Nations Cups, the last two actually, and they've not lived up to our expectations. So I'll be looking at between Cote d'Ivoire and Ghana. I'll be expecting one of them to actually take the tournament this time around. I think based on bookmakers' theory, everyone wants to go for Cote d'Ivoire as the Ivory Coast, but I'll be looking at Ghana because following up from their last performances at the last World Cup when they went all the way to the quarterfinals and were just away from the semi-finals by Luis Suarez, who somehow is still a Liverpool player. So I'll actually be expecting an Ivory Coast Ghana final.
Okay, well, Harrison Nimarco said it's really between Ghana and Ivory Coast. I'm a little taken aback by all the hype about Senegal. Stuart Dougal is a former international referee who's with us. So you've refereed in Africa. Tell us what to expect.
Well, it'll be absolutely fantastic. I was lucky enough to do the Egyptian derby twice, Al Ahly against Zamalek. and the atmosphere, obviously, with the crowd, fantastic. But certainly from my point of view, watching the referees, and it goes back to some of the points that we're talking about earlier in the programme, you know, looking at the consistency of referees. Don't forget that these will be the top African referees that will be there. FIFA will have them properly schooled, but no doubt we will have plenty of talking points, and there have been not many over the last 10, 12 years, but we'll see a fantastic display of football, and I'm hoping a fantastic display of refereeing as well.
OK, Leroy, who's going to win?
Well, firstly, I have to say, Stuart, I've been sent off by a referee in the African Qualification Nations in Mali, and so that came back to the memory. But I do think you can't write off Ivory Coast. With all their experience, I think the way they performed in the last African Cup Nations will haunt them, and I think they'll be motivated that extra little bit to go the whole way. If Yaya Toure is fresh enough to go and perform like he has done in the Premier League this year.
And Leroy, was it justified, the red card?
Absolutely.
Yeah, OK. Bro Prince says, I believe Senegal, Ghana and Ivory Coast are the favourites. But that's it. We've run out of time, I'm afraid. We'll be back same time, same place next week for another edition of Sports World. Have yours. Say goodbye.